to go back to this timeline and kind of take the next step in doing some of my qualitative coding where I'm using that grounded theory approach. And I think this is going to lead us into some of the Cohen's kappa that I haven't covered yet. I know that was a third type of iterator reliability, but to do that, we have to we have to code things, like a researcher has to have choices in the way to code specific events. So we're going to kind of build to that. So here's, you could see this is the timeline we made last time. I had adjusted all the instances so that they're exactly right, just called behavioral prompt. So remember, if I click and hold control while I click on them, I can see all of the different text labels that I had. Remember, I looked into the matrix before. If I click the matrix function here, I can see all of the different text labels as well right here. So I'm using this information for my frequent codes to start to build a hierarchy in my code window. So let's go back to this code window. We're going to focus in on what I've done here with the student responses. So you can see I've already neatened it up a little bit, but I'm going to pull this apart now and show you some of the things that I've been thinking about. So back in all of these, when I did the open coding over here in the timeline, I know that there are student responses to when a teacher gave a behavioral prompt. So I just decided to focus in on that today. And I knew the response could either be correct or incorrect. And there are a couple different ways that we can make these. You can see that I have, there are different symbols in these. Circles mean text labels, and red diamonds mean codes. And I know I talked about how I want to explain to you when you might choose a code versus when you might choose a text label. Remember, a code allows you to put information inside of it, a text label inside of it, so that you can make some calculations and find out more information about that. So a lot of times I make codes and text labels with the same information so that I can really develop this hierarchy. For example, you can see I already have a whole lot of links going on over here. I'm going to put them behind. My main code is student response right here. And I want that to be activated. I don't want to have to click that. I want that to be activated. You can see these activation links by either whether the student was correct or incorrect. So that's kind of the first step of the hierarchy I made. I just said, okay, well, they could have had a correct response or an incorrect response. But I know that there's more information I can get about the correct and incorrect response. For example, if it was correct, I want that to reflect, remember last time I talked about these 4 different ways the teacher gave a prompt. It might have been a physical prompt, a verbal prompt to do something physical, or something that was physical and verbal at the same time. So I want those same 4 codes that are going to get applied to the teacher behavioral prompt into the correct response. I want to know information about that correct response. So if I go to examine student responses, which were the common ones that they were getting right? So I have text labels of these same 4 information here going into, let's see if I put the links on top, you can see I've got activation links. These text labels are all applied to this correct response. And something you're not really going to be able to see very well, I also have exclusive links from each of these text labels to the correct response code. Because what this is going to do is say that if I have any other codes running, it's only going to apply this particular text label into this code. It won't, if I don't have any exclusive links, if I press a text label, it's going to apply to all running codes. And we don't want that. We want that to go only into this correct response code. So I have them activating. So I have this as a hierarchy. So basically now I don't even have to push correct response. I just have to push one of these 4. It activates correct response, which then activates student response. But right now, having correct response and incorrect response as codes doesn't put any information into the general student response, which is something that I know, I believe Will had mentioned this in one of my other posts, that generally we don't always code correct response and incorrect. We might code response and then use a text label to say whether it's correct or incorrect. From my experience doing this, I like to do both. I like to have a full hierarchy going. So behind my correct response, I have it activating a text label, which is exclusively linked and doing the activation link to student response. So I really have it as both. I can just pile them on top of each other so I don't see so many, but they're all kind of activating each other. I'm going to go through that one more time a little slowly because I know that's a lot of information here. So my main code of student response, I want to be able to look at information inside of it. So I want text labels that tell me correct or incorrect response. Okay, and instead of having to push student response, I have them being activated by these text labels. However, I know I can get more information about correct response and incorrect response. I can go even deeper into those text labels. So I can't leave them as just text labels. I need to have codes of them. So I duplicated them and made them into codes. You can see that by my red diamond. And I'm laying them on top of each other so it doesn't make a messy code window. Okay? And I have these codes activating those text labels which activate student response. Now, these are codes that I can put information into. And right now, all the information I had from my open coding is here in text label form. If I go back and recode my video now with these new codes, I might say, okay, maybe I'll learn a little bit more about no response. Say I have more information that I want to go in there. Well, I would do the same process as I did up here and say, okay, well, I'll turn it into a code also and activate it that way. And then have text labels that can be applied into that one. So you can see how you build in a hierarchical fashion like this. And you like to have both codes and text labels, and you can just neaten everything up by piling them on top of each other. One last thing for today's post is these are all, because these are not, I guess I'm trying to say they're not explicitly like 2 seconds long. If you look over here, each of these prompts, when the student's doing something, they are a certain length instance. So I don't want to set them to like turn on and off. However, when they're finished, I want a quick way to turn everything off. So I made an action button here it's called end response. And basically I drew a deactivation link from this end response to any codes I have running here under student response. So I only have 3 of them that are codes. You don't need to turn off a text label because that's just a piece of information. So it's turning off correct response, student response, and incorrect response. So after I code something and I'm all finished, I just click end response and these codes stop running. If you want to see quickly how that works, I can just put this into code mode right now. I'm going to turn off my volume though so it's not loud. So, I'm not coding this for real at this point, but if I said, okay, it was a physical prompt and the student was correct, you can see it's running here, okay? And then if I click end response, it turns them off.